Valentine's Day is often filled with love, flowers, and chocolates, but tonight we're diving into the darker side of this romantic day. These are true stories where love took a terrifying turn, proving that even on Valentine's Day, horror can strike when you least expect it. Welcome to Valentine's Day True Tales of Terror. Get ready for 3 creepy stories that will make you think twice about celebrating this day of love. Emily and Michael were high school sweethearts, inseparable from the day they met. They shared everything: dreams, fears, and most importantly, a love that felt destined to last forever. For their first Valentine's Day as a couple, they wanted to escape the chaos of the city and spend time alone. They found the perfect spot, a secluded lake, known only to locals, rumored to be the most peaceful place in the county. The night of their romantic outing was perfect. The moon was full, casting a silvery glow on the still waters of the lake. Emily had packed a picnic, complete with Michael's favorite wine, and they set out in a small rowboat, drifting lazily across the water. The only sounds were the gentle lapping of water against the boat and the distant call of an owl. It felt as if they were the only 2 people in the world. But as the night wore on, the atmosphere began to change. A thick fog rolled in, suddenly and without warning, swallowing the boat in an impenetrable mist. Michael joked about it at first, trying to lighten the mood, but the laughter quickly died in his throat when they realized they could no longer see the shore. The fog was so dense that even the light from the full moon was blotted out. The temperature dropped, and a sense of unease settled over them. Michael reached for the oars to head back, but they were gone. Panic set in. How could the oars just disappear? They began shouting for help, but their voices were swallowed by the fog, echoing back to them in distorted, eerie whispers. As the minutes ticked by, their fear grew. Emily clung to Michael, her heart pounding in her chest. Then, out of the corner of his eye, Michael saw someone standing on the water. A figure slowly emerged from the fog, an old man dressed in tattered clothes, his face pale and expressionless. His eyes were black voids, staring directly at them. The boat began to rock violently as the man moved closer, though he made no sound. It was as if he was floating, gliding over the water. The air around them became icy, their breath visible in the cold. Emily screamed as the boat tilted dangerously, but it was too late. With one final lurch, the boat capsized, and they were plunged into the freezing water. Emily tried to swim, to reach for Michael, but her limbs felt like lead, weighed down by an unseen force. The last thing she saw before slipping beneath the surface was the old man's cold, empty eyes. The next morning, a fisherman discovered their boat, eerily empty and drifting near the shore. There was no sign of Emily or Michael, and despite an extensive search, their bodies were never found. To this day, locals believe that the old man was the ghost of a fisherman who drowned in the lake many years ago, cursed to drag young lovers to a watery grave. On foggy nights, some say you can still hear Emily's desperate cries for help, echoing across the water. Sarah and James had always been adventurous, seeking out new places to explore whenever they could. They loved the thrill of the unknown, and their idea of the perfect Valentine's Day was to spend it in nature, far from the usual romantic spots. That year, they decided to hike a trail in the mountains that was known for its stunning views and peaceful solitude, but it was also known for its unpredictable weather, and the locals often warned against hiking it in winter. The day started off promising. The sky was clear, the air crisp, and the snow on the ground sparkled in the morning sun. They set out early, eager to reach the summit by noon and enjoy a picnic with a view that would take their breath away. As they ascended, the trail became narrower and the snow deeper, but they pressed on, undeterred by the increasing difficulty. As they climbed higher, clouds began to gather, casting long shadows over the snow-covered landscape. James checked the weather on his phone. It wasn't supposed to snow that day, but as they reached a particularly steep section of the trail, a sudden blizzard swept in, blinding them with thick, swirling snow. The temperature dropped rapidly, and within minutes, they were disoriented, unable to see more than a few feet in any direction. Panic set in as they realized they had lost the trail. The wind howled around them, and the snow stung their faces like icy needles. James tried to stay calm, but the situation was dire. They were miles from civilization, and the storm showed no signs of letting up. Just as they were about to turn back, they spotted a small, dilapidated cabin half buried in the snow. Relieved to find shelter, they hurried inside. The cabin was old, clearly abandoned for years, with broken windows and a roof that sagged under the weight of the snow. The inside was even more unsettling. Strange symbols were carved into the walls, some of them familiar, others unrecognizable. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the only furniture was a single, rotting chair in the corner. As the storm raged outside, they tried to make themselves comfortable, but the cabin felt wrong, as if it was holding on to the memories of something terrible. As night fell, the temperature inside the cabin plummeted, and they huddled together for warmth. Then came the footsteps. At first, they thought it was just the wind, but the sound was unmistakable, heavy, deliberate footsteps crunching in the snow outside. They froze, listening as the steps grew closer, circling the cabin. Sarah whispered that they should leave, but James shook his head. There was nowhere to go in the storm. The footsteps stopped, and the door creaked open slowly. A dark figure stood in the doorway, obscured by shadow. It was impossible to make out any features, but they could feel its eyes on them, cold and piercing. The figure stepped inside, and the room instantly grew colder. The symbols on the walls began to glow with a faint, eerie light. James tried to speak, to demand who or what it was, but no sound came out. The figure moved closer, its presence suffocating. The air was so cold now that their breath froze in front of them. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut, praying it was all a nightmare, but when she opened them, the figure was standing over them, a hand reaching out. When the storm finally cleared, rescue teams found the cabin, but there was no sign of Sarah or James. Their footprints led into the cabin, but there were none leading out. The search continued for weeks, but they were never found. The cabin still stands, abandoned and forgotten, a place where time seems to have stopped. Hikers who dare to venture near it claim to feel a bone-chilling cold and hear footsteps in the snow, even when they are alone. Valentine's Day is meant to be a time for love and happiness, but these stories show that love can sometimes take a terrifying turn. The line between love and fear can be thin, and when crossed, it can lead to horrifying consequences. Thank you for joining us for Valentine's Day True Tales of Terror. Remember, these stories are real, so stay safe and have a happy Valentine's Day, if you dare.